What if I told you the most powerful tool you will ever own isn't your money, your connections, your education, or even your intelligence? What if the one thing separating you from the life you want and the life you're living is your clock? Every person on this planet, whether they are a billionaire CEO, an Olympic gold medalist, or the quiet janitor sweeping the halls at night, has the exact same 24 hours, the same ticking clock. But what separates the elite from the average is how they use those hours. It's not about working harder, it's about choosing how to work smarter. Time doesn't lie. It tells you who you really are. It reveals your discipline, it exposes your excuses, and it mirrors your priorities. The truth: most people don't lack time. They waste it, they bleed it, minute by minute. Scrolling, complaining, delaying. They give their hours away to distractions that never pay them back. Successful people guard their time like it's gold, because it is. They don't wake up and see how the day goes. They attack the day. They own it before it owns them. They design their mornings before the sun rises, because they understand that if you win the morning, you win the day. Every minute has a price tag. Every hour is either an investment or a loss. So ask yourself, what are you doing with yours? Are you putting your energy into building something lasting, or are you busy staying busy? Because busy is not productive, and productive is not powerful if it isn't purposeful. The successful are not addicted to adrenaline, they are addicted to results. They don't glorify stress. They strategize it. They live by priorities, not pressure. They don't let other people's chaos become their calendar. You think they wake up and just check their messages. No, they check in with themselves. They have non-negotiables, boundaries, rituals. A successful person doesn't let the world dictate their focus. They don't give everyone access to their attention. Because where your focus goes, your time follows. And once that hour's gone, you don't get it back. You need to become ruthless with your time. You need to ask, does this task bring me closer to the life I want, or is it a distraction in disguise? Not every invitation deserves a yes. Not every emergency is your emergency. People will pull at your time until you have nothing left. You must protect it like your future depends on it. Because it does. The best don't chase perfection, they chase consistency. They know that a structured day compounds into an unstoppable life. They batch tasks. They eliminate time thieves. They plan the night before. They set timers. They say no more than they say yes. Because every yes to nonsense is a no to greatness. Success isn't found in some grand 10-year plan. It's found in the small, gritty choices you make today. It's found in waking up 30 minutes earlier. In turning off the phone when it's time to focus. In deciding that you will no longer waste one more hour explaining your goals to people who don't get it. People say, I don't have time to work out. No, you just didn't make time. You said yes to Netflix and no to your health. I don't have time to build my dream. But you spent 3 hours doom scrolling. The difference between someone succeeding and someone settling is not talent. It's not background. It's not luck. It's their discipline in managing the same 24 hours everyone else has. Successful people don't wait for motivation. They act without it. They understand that discipline builds motivation, not the other way around. They don't waste mental energy debating what needs to be done. They decide once, then they execute, on repeat. It becomes who they are. Their identity is shaped by the habits they honor, not the emotions they feel. You want to manage your time like a successful person. Then stop being available to everyone, all the time. Stop reacting to life and start directing it. Time is your currency. Every task you choose is either buying you freedom or costing you your future. And let me be clear, this isn't about becoming a robot. It's about becoming so intentional, so disciplined, that you no longer allow chaos to lead your life. That you don't wake up overwhelmed because your day already has a blueprint. That you don't feel behind because you stopped chasing other people's timelines and started honoring your own. This isn't about time management. It's about self-management. Because your time is a reflection of your inner world. A scattered mind will create a scattered day. But a focused mind, that builds a focused life. When you finally take ownership of your 24 hours, you take ownership of everything else. So the next time you say, I don't have time, remember, you're lying to yourself. You have the same hours as anyone who's ever built an empire, healed from trauma, raised a family, written a book, or transformed their body. The difference? They used their hours like they mattered. Because they do. The clock is ticking. The question is, are you going to keep wasting time or finally start owning it? What if you stopped looking at other people's success like it's some mystery you'll never unlock? What if you finally realized that the people at the top, the ones you admire, envy, and scroll past on your feed, aren't living in a different universe? They don't have 27 hours. They don't have access to some hidden vault of time you've never been invited to. They have the exact same 24 hours you do. That's it. That's the playing field. Level. Fair. Brutally honest. And here's the hard truth. Your results are a direct reflection of how you spend yours. You want to change your life. Start by changing how you treat your time. Because that clock, those 24 hours, it doesn't care about your excuses, your upbringing, your circumstances, or your feelings. It just ticks. And every tick is a test. While one person uses their time to build, another uses it to delay. One chooses action, the other chooses comfort. One gets uncomfortable and grows. The other gets distracted and stays stuck. The only difference between things is how they use the same 24 hours. When you finally wrap your mind around that, you stop playing victim. You stop saying, I don't have time, and start saying, I didn't make time, because I didn't prioritize it. That's the shift. That's the pivot point between people who live with purpose and people who live on repeat. Time doesn't lie. It doesn't flatter you. It reflects your discipline. It tells the truth about what you value, because where your minutes go, your life follows. So no, you don't need more time. You need more accountability. You need to own your hours like your future depends on it. Because it absolutely does. Most people treat their time like it's disposable. Like it's some cheap commodity they can waste, lose, or trade for instant gratification. But the people who rise, the ones who separate from the pack, they treat their time like currency. Like it's gold. Because they know once it's gone, it's gone. You don't get refunds on wasted minutes. There's no app that lets you recover the hours you spent on things that didn't matter. And the successful, they feel that. They live like time is sacred. They don't let everyone have access to them. They don't say yes to every message, every call, every demand on their energy. They know time isn't just about productivity. It's about power. Who gets your time gets your focus. Who gets your focus influences your direction. So they guard it. Ruthlessly. They build boundaries that aren't just suggestions. They're non-negotiable. Not because they're arrogant, but because they're clear. Clear on what matters. Clear on who matters. Clear on where they're going. You'll never see a high performer scattered in all directions, stretched thin by every little thing life throws their way. Why? Because they've trained themselves to protect their schedule like a fortress. Their time isn't up for grabs. It's already accounted for. Planned, structured, and executed with intention. You think that kind of control comes naturally. It doesn't. It's built. It's earned through decisions that most people are too distracted to make. You don't build a powerful life by giving your attention to anything that flashes on a screen. You build it by choosing what doesn't get your time. And if you're serious about becoming who you say you want to be, then you better start treating your hours like they're sacred, because they are. You want to know the real secret behind high-performing people. It's not just what they do, it's when they do it. They don't roll out of bed when the world is already on fire. They don't start their day by reacting. They own the start of it. They win the morning, because they know the first hour isn't just about getting up. It's about taking control. Before the chaos of the day tries to own them, they claim their space. They lock in their focus. And they decide who they're going to be before anyone else has the chance to influence it. The successful don't wake up and grab their phones. They don't check notifications before they check their mindset. They've trained themselves to master the morning, because that first hour sets the standard for everything that follows. It's not about doing 100 things. It's about doing the right things. Stillness, movement, mental clarity, strategy. Whether it's working out, reviewing goals, or simply getting still enough to think, they put themselves in a position of power. They rise with purpose, not panic. Because let me tell you something. If the first thing you do is scroll, compare, react, or rush, you've already handed over control of your day. And once you lose the morning, it becomes 10 times harder to recover the rest. Winning your morning isn't about being perfect, it's about being intentional. Even 30 minutes of structure at the start of your day can completely shift your energy, your decisions, and your results. And no, it's not always easy. There are days when the bed feels warm, the body feels tired, and the mind tries to bargain. But discipline doesn't negotiate. High performers don't wake up for comfort. They wake up for clarity. That's what separates those who repeat the same year over and over from those who reinvent themselves daily. They understand one thing: win the morning, win the day. Every single time, there's a dangerous trap most people fall into, and they wear it like a badge of honor. They call it being busy. But let me be crystal clear: busy is not the same as productive. Running around, checking boxes, constantly reacting to everything and everyone. That's not power. That's chaos. And successful people don't live in chaos. They live in clarity. They don't measure their day by how much they did. They measure it by what actually moved the needle. You can fill your calendar with 1,000 small, meaningless tasks and still go to bed empty. That's what happens when you confuse movement with progress. It's the illusion of achievement. High performers know better. They don't chase activity. They chase results. They sit down and ask, what is the one thing I can do today that actually matters? What's going to create impact, momentum, growth? And then they go all in. No distractions, no bouncing between tasks. They zero in and execute with precision. You want to know why most people stay stuck? Because they can't sit still long enough to focus. Their attention span is hijacked. Their priorities are driven by notifications, not purpose. They're constantly switching gears, multitasking their way into mediocrity. But the successful, they build their day around what matters most. They protect their focus like a soldier guarding a mission. Because they understand this: every time you break your focus, you weaken your results. Every time you let someone interrupt your priorities, you hand them your power. Focus is a weapon, and the elite know how to use it. They don't glorify being overwhelmed. They organize, they streamline, they eliminate the noise and commit to the few things that matter. Because when you master your focus, you master your outcomes. And when your outcomes are intentional, success becomes inevitable. People keep saying, I just need to feel motivated. As if motivation is this magical fuel that's going to show up, knock on your door, and drag you into your greatness. It's not. That feeling you're waiting for, it's unreliable, it's unstable, it's fleeting. And the people who operate at the highest level, the people who build, lead, overcome, and dominate, they don't wait to feel like it. They've trained themselves to move without it, because they know motivation is temporary. But discipline is who you become when motivation leaves the room. You think a Navy SEAL wakes up every morning feeling excited to train in freezing water. You think a world-class athlete feels like pushing through pain every day. No, but they do it anyway, because successful people don't trust feelings, they trust systems, they trust their habits. They execute regardless of their mood, because their identity is built on consistency, not convenience. And that's the truth most people don't want to face. You are never going to feel like it every single day. But if you can learn to act even when you don't feel like it, you'll separate yourself from 99% of people instantly. We live in a world that glorifies emotions. Listen to your body. Honor your feelings. Be kind to yourself. Sure, there's value in self-awareness. But when it becomes an excuse to stay average, to skip your commitments, to push off your goals until you're in the right headspace, that's not kindness. That's sabotage. And successful people don't indulge in that kind of self-sabotage. They may feel tired, they may feel uncertain, they may feel completely out of it. But they act anyway, because they're not chasing a vibe. They're chasing results. Here's what they understand: discipline is a muscle. And like any muscle, it only grows when it's challenged. So when you push through resistance, when you show up on the days you don't want to, you're not just checking off a box. You're proving to yourself who's in charge. You're rewiring your brain to trust your own word. That's power. That's control. That's self-respect. The difference between winners and everyone else is not some secret sauce or hidden talent. It's that winners do what needs to be done no matter how they feel. Everyone else waits to feel ready. And let me tell you something, readiness is a lie. You will never feel completely ready to level up, to take that risk, to step into that next version of yourself. If you're waiting for the perfect time, you'll be waiting forever. But discipline shows up right now. It gets in the arena with you. It tells you, let's go. Even when you're scared, even when you're tired, even when you're not in the mood. Discipline is brutal. It doesn't care about your excuses, your bad day, your lack of sleep. And that's exactly why it's so effective. Because it pulls you out of the emotional spiral and brings you back to execution. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't debate. It just does. And that's why the disciplined win. Not because they have more time, more talent, or more energy. But because they've made discipline their standard. They expect themselves to follow through no matter what. And that expectation becomes identity. When you start to see yourself as someone who always shows up, who keeps promises to themselves, who doesn't skip the work just because it's inconvenient, you become unstoppable. You start to trust your own commitment. And the world starts to trust it too. That's when momentum kicks in. Not because things got easier, but because you got stronger. You want real confidence. You want the kind of internal fire that doesn't burn out. Then stop depending on motivation. Start depending on your standards. Set rules for yourself and honor them. Create structure and follow it. You don't have to feel great to act great. You just have to act. And when you act, the emotion often follows. Most people have it backwards. They think action comes after motivation. But successful people know the opposite is true. Action creates motivation. You do the thing. You show up. You get the win. No matter how small. And suddenly you start feeling energized. Not because the emotion came first, but because you earned it. You earned your own respect. And that kind of respect. It's not given. It's built in the trenches. It's built in the early mornings when your body says no and your purpose says yes. It's built in the late nights when everyone else has tapped out but you're still going because you said you would. Look at any area of your life. Your body, your business, your mindset, your relationships. The level of discipline you bring to it will determine the results you get from it. You want to level up your fitness. Discipline. You want to build financial security. Discipline. You want peace of mind, emotional resilience, inner strength. Discipline. There is no transformation without discipline. None. You can journal all you want. Meditate every morning, read every self-help book on the planet. But if you don't follow through, if you don't do the work consistently, nothing changes. Discipline isn't about doing things when it's easy. It's about doing them when it's hard. It's about choosing long-term respect over short-term comfort. Because let's be real. Comfort never built a legacy. Discipline did. Comfort never earned a championship. Discipline did. Comfort never fixed a broken mindset, healed a trauma, built a business, raised a standard, or created freedom. Discipline did all of that. And if you're not willing to fight for your discipline, someone else will control your direction. The world is full of noise. Algorithms, opinions, distractions, drama, and all of it wants your time. All of it wants your energy. And if you don't lead with discipline, you'll follow someone else's agenda. You'll wake up one day and realize your time, your mind, your life wasn't even yours. But when you lead with discipline, you reclaim your power. You become intentional. You decide where your energy goes. You wake up with clarity. You build instead of react. You don't ask yourself, do I feel like it? You ask, what needs to be done? And then you do it. That's strength. That's leadership. That's how successful people manage their time. They don't wait for the right emotion. They command the right behavior. And here's the best parting: discipline is learned. You don't have to be born with it. You train it. One choice at a time. You build it through action. You build it when you do the hard thing. Again and again. Until it becomes who you are. Until one day, what used to be a struggle becomes your new normal. And that version of you, that's the version who leads, who builds, who conquers. So stop chasing motivation like it's your lifeline. It's not. Discipline is. Discipline is your anchor when everything else feels shaky. It's your weapon when life throws punches. It's your edge when the world gets lazy. Be the one who doesn't quit. Be the one who does it anyway. Because that's how you win, not just today, but for the rest of your life. Most people wake up and just wing it. No real plan. no structure, no sense of control. They roll out of bed already behind, already reactive, already pulled in 100 directions before they even had a moment to think. And that's exactly why they never get ahead. You cannot lead your life from a place of chaos. The people who win, they plan with intention, they don't leave their day to chance. And they sure as hell don't hand over the steering wheel to someone else. They command it. Because when you don't plan your day, something else will plan it for you. And trust me, it won't be aligned with your goals. Successful people don't hope the day works out. They design it. They don't guess what needs to be done. They decide it the night before. Why? Because decision fatigue is real. The more choices you leave to make during the day, the more power you lose. But when you prepare ahead of time, when you already know your priorities before you open your eyes, you walk into your day armed. You've already won half the battle before the world even knows you're awake. They create structure, not to be rigid, but to be free. Structure doesn't trap you, it liberates you. It gives you space to focus on what actually matters instead of wasting your energy figuring out what to do next. That structure becomes your clarity. It becomes the difference between living deliberately and living distracted. This is how the best operate. They break their day into clear blocks. They schedule their deep work. They guard their high-energy hours, and they don't apologize for prioritizing their purpose. They protect their calendar like it's sacred. Because it is. You want to see where someone's life is heading. Look at how they schedule their day. Are they aligning their time with their values, or are they just surviving hour by hour, checking off tasks that don't even push them forward? The truth is, you don't accidentally become successful. You don't stumble into greatness. You plan for it. You train for it. You commit to it in advance. And if you're not willing to plan your day with purpose, don't expect your life to unfold with excellence. The best don't wait until they're overwhelmed to get organized. They stay organized so they never get overwhelmed. They know that the calendar doesn't lie, that what gets scheduled gets done, that dreams mean nothing without a strategy. So they make time for what matters, not just what's urgent. They schedule growth. They schedule rest. They schedule silence. They don't treat time as infinite. They treat it as precious. Because when every hour is intentional, every day becomes powerful. And powerful days are what build extraordinary lives. There's a line that successful people draw, and they don't cross it. That line is called no, and they use it often. Because here's what most people get wrong. They think saying makes them generous, helpful, liked. But in reality, every unnecessary yes is a direct hit to your time, your focus, and your future. The most successful people, they say no more than they say yes. And they say it without guilt. Because they understand something most people ignore. Every yes costs you something. Every time you agree to something that doesn't align with your mission, your values, your goals, you've just made a trade. You've traded your time, your energy, your peace. And that trade almost always favors someone else's agenda, not yours. High performers know this. That's why they're selective. That's why they're intentional. They don't let pressure, obligation, or fear of disappointing others control their decisions. They know that boundaries aren't rude. They're required. It takes strength to say no. It takes clarity. Because when your priorities are vague, everything feels important. But when your priorities are locked in, when your time is mapped out with purpose, you start to realize that most of what comes your way doesn't deserve a place in your day. Most requests are distractions in disguise. People wanting access to your attention without earning it. People expecting you to drop your goals to serve theirs. And if you don't learn to say no, you'll live your whole life exhausted, resentful, and off course. Successful people don't just manage their time. They protect it. They look at their calendar like it's a battlefield, and every yes is a move they can't take back. They don't accept meetings that don't serve a mission. They don't commit to obligations just to be polite. They've learned that protecting their peace, their energy, their vision, that is the most respectful thing they can do, for themselves and for the people they actually do say yes to. When you learn to say no, you start to create space. Space to think, to grow, to breathe, to build. You get your time back, you get your power back, and most importantly, you get your life back. You stop being a passenger and start being the driver. Because a woman, or a man, who can say no with confidence is someone who knows who they are, someone who doesn't need approval to stay committed to their mission, someone who isn't swayed by guilt or noise. That's strength. That's leadership. That's ownership. So the next time you're tempted to say yes just to be agreeable, just to keep the peace, ask yourself this: what am I giving up by saying yes to this? What am I sacrificing? And is it worth it? Because every time you say yes to something small, you might be saying no to something great. And the people who get the most out of their 24 hours, they know exactly when to draw that line, and they don't hesitate to protect it. There are two kinds of people in this world: those who control their time, and those who let it get hijacked by distractions. And the difference between them: ruthlessness. The successful are ruthless about cutting out time thieves. Because they know something most people refuse to admit: not everything deserves their attention. Not every call needs to be answered. Not every message needs a reply. And not every distraction is harmless. Some of them are silent killers of progress. People think time gets stolen in big moments, but it doesn't. It slips away in the small, sneaky seconds. When you check your phone for just a minute. When you scroll past something meaningless that eats up 20 minutes before you even notice. When you drop everything to deal with someone else's drama. That's how your goals die. Not with a bang, but with a scroll. And if you don't become aware of what's stealing your time, you'll wake up one day wondering where your life went. The elite are not just productive. They're strategic. They know where their time is leaking. They audit it. They track it. They eliminate the fluff. They uninstall apps. They mute group chats. They unfollow noise. Because they refuse to hand over their potential to a device, a distraction, or a person who doesn't bring value. They are hyper-aware of what feeds them and what drains them. And if it drains them, it's gone. Period. You want to protect your 24 hours. Start by asking yourself this: what am I doing that looks busy but isn't building anything? Because being busy doesn't mean you're moving forward. A hamster on a wheel is busy too, but it's not getting anywhere. High performers don't confuse motion with progress. They focus on what actually moves the needle. Everything else, it's a distraction wearing a disguise. It's not just about deleting social media or saying no to gossip. It's about building discipline around your focus. It's about recognizing that your brain wasn't designed to multitask all day long. Constant interruptions weaken your ability to think deeply, to create, to execute. And the more you allow distractions in, the less you remember who you are. Because when your attention is scattered, your identity is too. This is where the greats separate themselves. They choose depth over noise. They don't need to be updated on everything. They need to be dialed in on what matters. They build an environment that supports their mission. They don't just protect their time. They protect their mind. Because they know the cost of distraction is not just lost minutes. It's lost progress. It's lost confidence. It's lost identity. So if you're serious about mastering your 24 hours, get clear about what needs to go. Clean house. Be relentless. Cut the digital clutter. Mute the chaos. Put up walls around your time like your future depends on it. Because it does. And when you do, you'll finally realize you were never short on time. You were just surrounded by too much noise. Time management isn't your real problem. It never was. What you're really struggling with is self-management. Because how you use your time is a mirror. It reflects your mindset, your discipline, your boundaries, and your values. You can buy every planner, download every productivity app, color code your calendar until it looks like a rainbow, and still get nowhere. Because the issue isn't the system, it's the person running it. Until you manage yourself, true strength, you'll keep spinning your wheels wondering why nothing changes. The most successful people don't just block time on their schedule. They live according to standards they've built within. They don't need reminders to focus. They've trained their mind to stay focused. They don't waste time managing chaos. They eliminate it before it starts. Because their sense of discipline isn't external, it's internal. It's who they are, not just what they do. Look at someone who's crushing their goals. Financially, physically, mentally. And I guarantee you they've done the hard work of managing their impulses. They don't let urges dictate their day. They don't chase comfort. They don't bargain with laziness. They lead themselves, even when no one's watching. That's the real difference. Anyone can perform when it's easy. But the ones who win long-term, they perform when it's hard, when it's inconvenient, when no one's clapping for them. They've built discipline like a muscle. They've confronted their weaknesses instead of hiding behind excuses. They've learned to say, "I don't negotiate with distractions." And they mean it. And that's not something you get from reading a book or listening to a motivational clip. That's something you build daily. Through practice. Through presence. Through brutal honesty with yourself. Because let's be real, if you don't control your emotions, your energy, your attention, someone else will. If you don't manage your self-talk, your environment, your priorities, you will always fall back into survival mode. That reactive, anxious, overwhelmed version of yourself. That's not who you are. That's who shows up when you're living without self-management. And the most dangerous thing about poor self-management is that it feels normal. You tell yourself it's just a busy season. You tell yourself you'll get serious tomorrow. But tomorrow never comes. And before you know it, you've built a life that looks full on the outside and feels empty on the inside. But when you shift, when you start showing up for yourself with consistency, when you get real about your distractions, when you stop letting every emotion derail you, you take your power back. You become someone you can count on. Not just when you feel good, but especially when you don't. And that's where the real transformation begins. That's where your time starts to serve you instead of suffocate you. Because now, you're no longer chasing motivation or waiting for clarity. You are the clarity. You're the structure. You're the force behind the results. And no calendar can do that for you. Only you can. People want big results, fast. They want transformation overnight. They want the end goal, the recognition, the success. But they're not willing to respect the process that builds it. And here's the truth: success isn't one big explosive moment. It's a slow burn. It's small decisions, repeated consistently, day after day after day. And the people who make it to the top, they understand that. They're not seduced by hype. They're committed to habits. They don't just perform when it's exciting. They perform when it's boring, when it's repetitive, when no one's watching, and there's no applause. Because they've mastered consistency, and consistency compounds into power. You can't eat clean for 3 days and expect a transformation. You can't show up focused for 1 week and expect your career to take off. That's not how this works. You want to build something real. Then you have to earn it daily. The most successful people don't rely on bursts of intensity. They rely on rhythm, discipline, ritual. They show up even when it feels like nothing is happening, because they trust the process. They know that what looks like nothing today becomes unstoppable momentum tomorrow. That's the thing about consistent action. It doesn't always feel rewarding in the moment. It's often invisible, quiet, undervalued, and that's why most people give up. They don't see instant validation, so they abandon the routine. But those who stay the course, they're not chasing dopamine, they're chasing dominance. They're not addicted to attention. They're addicted to growth. They've learned to fall in love with the process, not just the outcome. Consistency is what turns average into elite. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not some secret edge. It's the willingness to show up and do the work, especially when it's not glamorous. Especially when you're tired, bored, frustrated, or doubting yourself. Because that's where most people quit. And if you can just keep going when others stop, you will separate yourself without even trying to compete. You don't need a perfect plan. You need repetition. Reps build mastery. Reps create momentum. Reps build resilience. Every time you choose to stay committed when it would be easier to quit, you train your identity. You teach yourself that your word means something. And over time, those small choices create massive shifts. They shape your body, your finances, your confidence, your reputation. So no, it's not about intensity. It's about integrity. The kind of integrity that doesn't break when things get hard. The kind that doesn't depend on motivation. The kind that wakes up, gets to work, and keeps moving forward whether it's day 1 or day 1000. That's what real success is made of. Not the dramatic leap, but the steady grind. Not the loud achievement, but the quiet repetition that no one sees. And when those consistent actions stack up, when they begin to compound, something happens. You stop chasing goals, and start embodying them. You don't just have discipline, you become it. You don't just produce results, you live in a state of excellence. That's how greatness is built. Not in the highlight reel, but in the silent hours when no one is clapping and you keep showing up anyway. Because that's what winners do. They stay consistent, until consistent becomes unshakable. So now you know. It was never about having more time, more talent, or better luck. It was always about what you do with the same 24 hours everyone else has. The people who rise, who build lives of purpose, who turn vision into reality, they don't wait. They don't chase feelings. They don't let the world dictate their pace. They own their hours. They protect their energy. They choose their priorities, their focus, their boundaries. Deliberately, unapologetically, and every single day. And if you want to become that person, it starts with one decision that from this moment on, your time is no longer up for grabs, that your life will no longer be lived by default, that you will lead it. With precision, with discipline, and with power. Because every day is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming, and you get to choose who that is, not tomorrow. Now, your 24 hours are already ticking. The only question is, how will you use them?